All right, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to participate in our weekly Blackboard spring training seminars. My name is Dr. Scott Franklin. I'm the director of the virtual campus here at Wayland Baptist University. We've started these webinar workshops just last week with a seminar on discussion boards and rubrics. If you missed it, you can actually visit our website and you'll find a video of that session online. You just got to go to www.wbu.edu/online, click on our spring training link, and under last week's session you'll find a link to the recording. And just so you know, we are recording all of these sessions, so you can come back if you want to review something we've covered, or if there's one that you perhaps wanted to attend but it didn't fit your schedule, you'll be able to access those. For today's session, we're going to be covering wikis, journals, and blogs. I do want to remind you that we will not have a session next week because of spring break, but we will kick back off on Tuesday, March 19th with a session on tests and quizzes. Before I turn it over to Trish, let me mention that you can ask questions along the way by typing them into the chat window that's at the bottom left of your screen. I, along with other members of the virtual campus staff, will keep an eye on it and try to answer them. We'll also give Trish a chance to answer questions at the end of her presentation. Now, just want to let you know, unfortunately, because of a previously scheduled engagement, I'm going to have to step out about halfway through today's session. So some of the other VC staff will help out with the questions in the chat window. And Trish, whenever you're finished, feel free to just wrap it up yourself and close down the recording for me. So anyway, enough of my rambling. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Trish Trifolo, who is our distance learning specialist and our VC staff member in charge of faculty support. So Trish, it's all yours.
All right, I'm just going to turn on my video for a minute to say hi from Abilene. Welcome everybody who's participating. And then I'm going to turn off the video because it'll decrease a little bit of the bandwidth and hopefully stop distracting you from the topic. So last week we talked about discussion boards, and we actually started out our conversation with the idea of creating a learning community. I talked about the fact that as an instructor, one of the theories that we base online learning on is the idea of constructing knowledge. You have a wealth of knowledge, but there's so much out there on the internet that you don't have time to review everything, but you've got 20, 30 students in your classrooms who are very good at seeking out knowledge and bringing it to the classroom. And the idea of building the knowledge, I learn so many new things from my students every week because they've come across something that I haven't. And so I want to really imprint that in your mind, the idea of establishing a community where you can learn. And if you want to establish a community, you have to have some conversations going on back and forth. And so we talked about last week about discussion boards and how to get a forum going. But there are other ways and sometimes other reasons to use different tools that Blackboard in particular has available. And so this week we're going to look at blogs, wikis, and journals. All right, so we're going to look at the basic setup for each of them, and we're going to talk a little bit about best practices and experiences that people have. Now, in particular, and I'm not sure if this is really well visible, but it is one of the PDFs that I sent you. There are different reasons for using these three different tools. They have slightly different functionality. They have the ability to be viewed in different ways. and there are common uses that are slightly different. So I'm going to start out with a blog today. And a blog is short for weblog, and basically it's a kind of a shared online diary. And so you can share it with the whole course, and you can set the blog in certain ways so that people can bring in different kinds of content. They can bring in text, they can bring in links to URLs, they can add files, and it's a very public kind of viewing. Everybody views it, everybody sees it. Now, in the Blackboard classroom, I'm not going to cover today the way you could put a blog with a group. If you like to do group work in your classroom, you can give the group a discussion board or a blog or a wiki or a journal, any of those things, just among themselves. But we're just going to work with the basic classroom today. So it's going to be a public viewing within your course. When you want to do a blog, it's usually focused around an individual topic or an idea that you want to build on. And it can be reflective. Sometimes you could use it as a peer review with feedback, but let's look to see how it's set up, and I'll show you how I use a blog in my classroom. So I'm going to switch us over to my Blackboard classroom here, and hopefully you can all see this, that it's produced in a big enough way that you can see the screen fairly clearly. If anybody's having trouble, let my staff know so that they can respond, and I can try to change the resolution a bit. All right. If I want to go into an area of my classroom, I like to divide my classroom into weekly activities, and so we're going to work into week 3 of my apple pie course. And when we click into week 3, we're going to notice that I have not set up any content yet. So this time, I'd like to put in a blog. There are 2 different ways of setting up a blog, because you want to give some instructions in the blog, and you can set it up through the tool link in the content area, and you can just click on blogs this way. And you'll be given some information here. And so if you were going to do it this way, you would say, well, I want to link to a blog, and I'm going to create a new one. You've noticed I already have a couple of in there. But if I was going to create a new blog, I'd click here to create a new blog. And I would get this page. If I go to the blog area under the control panel where we have course tools, we have blogs here. If I click here, this is the same tool that you can reach. It just looks slightly different. You'll see I have my 2 blogs that I've already created, and I can still create a blog. And when I click Create Blog, I get that same page. So 2 different ways to access a blog area, the tool itself, to create a blog. Either way is correct. All right, so this is fairly simple. We're going to type in a name. And we'll put in types of apples. And then you'd put in some kind of instruction. Tell us about your favorite kind of apples. Got to do it in pie since we're in an apple pie course here. And then you're going to have some settings that you need to list. Obviously, we've defaulted it to being available. And if you want to set up a blog early and not make it available to your class, you can just change the availability by clicking no. But when you put up the link for the blog, if the blog is not available, they won't be able to get into it. So don't forget, just like course availability, you've got to make the blog available. You can always leave it available and restrict it on dates and times. You put a check mark in the box, and then use the calendar tool and the time tool to set your time so that they're formatted the way Blackboard likes them. It just makes it a lot easier. If you don't want to restrict it, don't put any check marks in. It's defaulted to allow the blog to be available to individually to all the students in the course. That means each student can post their own component into the blog. And right here it says allow anonymous comments. Remember in the discussion board, if you have anonymous, it's really anonymous. You won't know who posted, and I won't know who posted, and the students won't know who posted. So I'm a little hesitant to allow anonymous comments. So I check that off and remove the check. Blogs can be set for monthly or weekly. And you can choose whether to allow the users to edit and delete entries or delete comments. I like them to be able to edit their entries, and I don't worry about deleting entries too much. But if there's a comment that someone doesn't like, I want it brought to my attention. If it's inappropriate, I can remove it, but otherwise I don't want my students removing things just because, well, I didn't like that comment, I'm going to go remove that comment. So you got to go with the flow of the conversation. Just like in any classroom, there's always give and take. There's going to be tension. People won't like necessarily what someone else said, and they have to learn to use responses that are in a mannerly response or netiquette for an online class. And so I leave it at that setting. Now in my blog, I don't necessarily grade, but you can grade. And one of the things, you can add a rubric like we talked about last week, and I'll demonstrate a rubric in one of the blogs that I have set up. Another thing that you can do is set this grade for points. Let's put 10 points in here. And this will put a column in the grade center. In the grade center, you can select a grading scheme that could just be complete or incomplete, so you can just mark that they participated, or you could set it for a letter grade or something like that. So if you just want to know if they participated, then you could give them a check for participating, as opposed to giving them a letter grade that would calculate into a numerical part of your final grade. So once you've got that set up, you can go ahead and submit it. And what that does is it makes a collection of blogs that are created and set for your course. When you go into the content area, you're actually going to be creating a link to the blog tool. Just like in the discussion board where you create a link to the discussion board, you're going to be creating a link to the blog tool. So when you click here for a blog, now you can see the 3 different blogs that we have. And I want to link to a particular blog. And I'm going to use my Experiences Baking Apple Pie blog in this case. And when I click Next, it will come up and show me this area. Now this is what I want to warn you about. Blackboard has not corrected this yet to make it friendly in blogs and journals. I think Wikis, it is working properly. But if you're going to click into a tool, like this blog, you're just opening the page into the blog, and there won't be instructions. So on the link page, you want to make sure that you give the students the instructions that you want them to have. And so I am going to go back to my blog tool and edit this for a minute and get my instructions, because I didn't remember what I had for instructions. So that's an extra step that I don't like that Blackboard has in it. It's more of just an inconvenience, though. It's nothing that's a terrible non-functioning component. All right, so I'm back to my experiences for apple pie baking. I can go ahead and post my instructions here. I have it available to my class. I'm not going to restrict it, and I'm going to submit it. So now when my students come into the classroom here, I can go ahead and click on Experiences Baking Apple Pie, and they'll know what they're supposed to do. As you test the different ingredients in your apple pie, share your experiences with the class. All right, questions up to this point about blogs. Blogs are going to be kind of free-flowing thoughts. Let me share one of the blogs that I have right now in a classroom. And if I can get to that particular classroom, this is my biology course, and I had them view a video, Earth from Space. If you've not seen this video from NOVA, it is so cool. And what I'd like to show you is, here is the blog, and here are the instructions, and here is one of the posts that I made initially. And everyone here has made posts. Everyone who has the green exclamation point. And I can go in and read the different posts and see what they've said, and they can do the same thing. And some of them have comments on here. David has a little icon with a little bubble, and that means someone has made a comment back to him. So I can go ahead and expand the comment, and Julie has come in with her comment to David. And so free-flowing ideas, there's not a real point. I wanted to have their thoughts and how the video affected them. There wasn't any particular part of the concept of the course that I was trying to get across at this point. Now, what about grading blogs? Very, very similar to discussion boards. This blog does not have a rubric. So if I wanted to grade David's, I would click into the blog just like I've already done so that I'm in the area where the blogs are. I click on someone's name and I will see their blog, and I click on Edit Grade. And just like here, I don't have any rubric, so I can give him how many ever points I think that he should get out of 10. I can put in wonderful observations. And so that's feedback that I can give him. This is what he will see. The grading notes are from me. This is what I will see. He will not see it, nor will any other student see it. If I want to make a bigger response, if I need more room, I want to upload a file or attach an audio file or something like that, I can click on the text editor and it will go ahead and give me a bigger box with more functionality to do the same thing the little box does. And once I've done that, I would go ahead and submit the grade. Now, I've graded Crystal's, so I'm going to click on Crystal's name, and we'll see her grade. I gave her 10 out of 10. I said, great job. And now this is posted not only here in the blog area for me to see, but it's also in the Grade Center. I can access this blog from the Grade Center because when I create a blog and I want to grade it, it creates a column in the Grade Center. So when I go to my Grade Center, got to find the blog here, I think it's towards the end. There it is, Earth from Space, and I can access it this way also. So I can just go in and view the user's activity, and lo and behold, it puts me right back where I was a minute ago in the blog tool. Now, Tim was asking about the differences between blogs and discussion boards. Discussion boards you can keep in one specific topic, such as if I were discussing biological molecules, if I wanted to talk about proteins, I could just talk about proteins, or a particular disease related to proteins, or a particular thing about structure, and have them come back with that. And I can actually structure the discussion so that they maybe can't go away from that if they're supposed to stay in proteins. The blog, usually besides just formatting, which is really what that kind of follows through, it's a little bit harder to click back and forth for the students to see who's made a comment and how they've responded. If they want to go back and click back through a couple of responses, you'll notice you can't collect several responses here like you can in the discussion board. You're kind of looking at one at a time. And so it takes a little bit more clicks and effort to read through a blog. And so I think for the most part, the students necessarily won't read through all the different comments. In the discussion board, it's a little bit easier to expand it. All right, so that's a blog. And this is an example of an ongoing blog right now. Next, we'll go ahead and go through wikis. So I'm going to see if I can do this right. I'm going to send us back to our whiteboard over here and look at what a wiki offers. A wiki is also a collaborative online space, and the students in this case are actually going to put something together so that they can process it and it can evolve into something bigger over time. If you're familiar with Wikipedia, which by the way has better accuracy of information than most encyclopedias, but because it's a wiki, it can be edited by anyone, and it doesn't matter what your credentials are. Wikipedia is actually overseen by a board of people, and there are groups of people assigned to specific topic areas, and they're supposed to oversee to make sure that there's not a lot of false information or incorrect information, or if it's been attacked by someone and lots of things have been changed. So, but you don't know how often they come in. So as far as wikis go, you have to be careful out in the real world for Wikipedia, but it's usually not a bad source, especially if it's the first one where you can get an overview of what you really want to study in depth, and then you can go back and find really good sources for much more in-depth work. But the key to this wiki is that it is collaborative. All the members of the students in the course, or a specific group, because again you could make this a group function, are going to bring information in and build it. And so this is really good for team building, for a project that you might have the students working on. You can use it for a resource list. The students are bringing in lots of resources. You can do that on a blog too. Vocabulary lists. Or if you're in an English course or a course where you're a research course where you're trying to teach formatting and different things like that, you can give them a document to work on to try to get it correct, and they can discuss back and forth why it's correct or not. So a wiki is something that has to be built. So let's take a look at wikis. Back to my apple pie course. All right, again, I can put in a wiki by creating it from this location. Or I can come down to the course tools and create my wiki here. Now, I like to create them from my course tools when I use the content area. I'm actually wanting to create a link. So if I'm ahead of time and I'm actually able to get this running before it's due, I would go in here and set up a wiki this way. I would click on wikis, and I would create a wiki. If I did that from the content area, again, you'd do the same thing. You'd click on link to a wiki and then create a new wiki, and it would bring you to this very same page. And so in this one, you would give it some kind of name. You'd give some kind of instructions. You'd look to see if you want to have it available at certain times. And here is the thing that you want to take a look at. Do you want to leave it open to editing and open to commenting? One of the things that you can do is you can open it to editing in the beginning, and then once something's been created, you could come back in and close it to editing and open it to commenting. Or, depending on your purpose, you can leave it open to both. So you have a little flexibility, and you can go ahead and choose these kinds of participation parameters based on what you would like to have included. Again, you can have no grading, and no column will be created in the grade center. You can click grading. You can add rubrics if you wish to. I have a couple of them in here. I'm not going to add a rubric for this one. And you can put in how many ever points you want to put in. And again, you could just put complete, incomplete in the grade center, and I will show you how to do that when we get to the end here. Once you've got all these parameters set, you can go ahead and submit your wiki. I'm going to cancel this one because I've already got one set up for my apple pie that I did earlier. So we'll take a look at the one that I created earlier, and you'll see that it's set up just like before. I've got the wiki page set up with the instructions. There are no pages yet for this wiki, so I need to create a landing page or a home page. It's telling me that this wiki isn't deployed into my classroom for my students to really access it yet. And so I either have to make a link like I've done for blogs here, or I can go into my classroom and create the link in my weekly lesson, which is what I want to do. So I can come in here and I would, as you can see, I've got the blog set here. I'm going to do the wiki. And it will link to the one that I've already created. And you'll notice, yes, I haven't got instructions here for this one. I'm going to leave it blank. Oops, sorry. I clicked on the wrong thing there. Let me go back. So I would just want to make a link to a particular wiki, and I just need to go to next instead of that. And okay, the wiki, I thought it did. The wiki does include the instructions, unlike the blog tool. Don't ask me why they didn't include this in the blog tool. I've submitted that suggestion, so have other people, so hopefully they'll correct it down the line. Same thing for the discussion board tool. And I've got my availability, so I'm submitting it. And there is my wiki. You'll notice the icon. A wiki is several people are going to write in this to make something big. So I have several pieces of paper. The blog icon is a single piece of paper, and people are going to punctuate it with little notes or comments. So you have a little bit different tool. Now let's see what a wiki looks like in a classroom. And I'm not sure how long this is taking to generate on your side. So can you all see my animal with the instructions? Or is it still generating? Okay, it's moving pretty fast then. All right, so my wiki in one of my biology courses on the first week of class, because I want them to work together and learn to depend on one another, is, what is this? And here are the instructions. What is this animal? Gather some information about it. Go to a website or a book or the library, kind of saying, can you get there online? Do they know how to get to the Wayland Library through our links? And I kind of give them a hint, the names associated with the tale, and then they are supposed to click on the title above, and the wiki will open, and then click on the edit box. Remember, in a learning community, because you can't see each other and because they're not collaborating like you and I are at this point, be sure to give them specific directions so that they know how to get to where they need to get. And really kind of follow your directions and see if you land where you want to land. So add your material right into the paragraph that's already written. You might have to edit and change a few things. That's okay. But don't just comment. So let's see what this looks like. Now this is from last semester, so it's actually a complete document. And what they would do is they would come in and edit the wiki content. And when you edit the wiki content, you literally can come in here and edit it. You can add whatever you have to add in here to make changes. And so they have to learn how to do that. And they have to try to make it, now we don't have very good paragraphs here, but I'm not grading on that. I was looking for different information. And so they tried to put in some of the different information. Some of it is not quite right, and some of it is very good information. And so this was what somebody put in. Somebody put in a YouTube video so that you could see what a ringtail was. And so once someone edit it, they'll click submit. Now, how do I know what everybody's put in? If you click on participation summary, it will give you a summary of who came in and how many words they put in, or the percentage that they modified, how many times they saved things here. This person came in 3 different times to edit things. So they evidently liked that particular one. And I can go to individual names, and it will show me what they contributed. And it'll say version 17. So I actually can go through and see how it's changed over time and what was added at different times. And I'm not going to go through all that example, but you'll get the idea that you can go ahead and kind of play with this, and you can see who put in what and how much effort they put into this particular tool to create something with a wiki. Okay, so we have 2 tools here, a blog and a wiki. These are collaborative tools where you're going to get the class talking back and forth in some format, and it really, what you use is up to you. What strategies work for you, how you like your class to run. Sometimes it's what students are in the class. I've put a wiki up and they hardly do, a line or 2 of work. And then I get the next semester, I'll put a wiki up and I will have pages of information. And so you have to kind of gauge your classroom, your class, your students, see what is working for them, be aware of their learning styles. If they are not the type of students who like writing a lot, you may not get very good participation in a wiki. If they love to research information, you might. In a blog, if they like to talk a lot, you're going to find the person who talks the most in class will be blogging the most, inevitably. If they are very quiet, they may not be able to look at a big contribution to the blog. So you have to set parameters. How much do you want them to contribute? JB wants to know if there are tools to detect plagiarism. Well, it's the typical thing. In mine that I just put together, I did not require them to list their sources. I just wanted them to get in there the idea of building. So there was a lot of copying and pasting from the internet. We talked about that later on, but I wanted the process to come to fruition there. I wanted them to get the idea and that they could build something together and that they could help one another out to get a product that came out in the end. What you can do is have them put in the wiki to bring in information, and every time they post something to list their source at the bottom, and then the final product could be put through SafeAssign as a final paper with the different references listed. And so you could check along that line. But as Jennifer says, mostly these are not going to be real original thoughts in the type of wiki that I built in my classroom. They were out seeking information. Okay, so we've got wikis, we've got blogs. What does the student see? Let me go ahead and log out here and come in as my test student into Apple Pie. And it's week 3, so my student is going to come into my classroom, and hopefully this would be better put together, but they say, oh, we're supposed to contribute to the blog. And so they click into here, and my student has put in a response to this particular blog. Now, we talked about using rubrics last week, and I have established a rubric for this particular blog. And so if I want to grade the blog, the student is going to be using this rubric. So they don't have a grade yet, and they want to know if have I posted this well enough? And so they're going to click on the rubric and they're going to say, let's see, I'm supposed to have content that relates to our weekly assignment. I'm supposed to have some personal experience in there, and it looks like I have to pay attention to how I compose and put my material together grammatically. So now they have some idea of the things that I would be looking for when I'm grading this particular blog. Okay, so they can see the blog entry, and if they wanted to get to the wiki, they could go ahead and get into the wiki. And now nobody's written in this yet. No pages exist for this wiki. So I'm going to put my name in here, Student Trifolo. Oops, well, I'm supposed to know how to type my own name. And then I would describe how I'm going to roll out a crust. First, you need a rolling pin. Okay, well, that's all I'm going to put in right now. So I'm going to submit that. And now we've started this wiki. And somebody else can come in from the class and build on this, or take that away and add some new content and keep building on that. I'm going to come back in as the instructor into Apple Pie. Oops, where am I? And then I want to grade the blog that my student has contributed to. So I'm going to come into the Full Grade Center, and I'm going to find the blog, Experiences, Baking Apple Pie. It's got 9 points on it, and it is a blog, and Student Trifolo is the only one who's posted so far. So I'm going to view her activity. Now this is where the rubric comes in handy. Here's the post, and I want to grade the student, so I'm going to click on Edit Grade. And because I have a blog rubric, I can click on the rubric, and it allows me to grade the student right there. So let's see. The weekly assignment was about different kinds of flour, and so the student talked about a couple of different kinds of flour. So I think they're pretty proficient in that. And personal experience, she baked 2 kinds of pies. She rolled out and she talked about the results of it. So that's pretty proficient. And the grammar and composition is okay. It's not outstanding, but it's pretty competent. So when I mark that, I see that it's going to give this student 9 out of 10 points, which is fine. I could put feedback in here. Watch your paragraph composition. Remember, I could get a bigger box if I wanted to by clicking Text Editor. And remember, we have 2 clicks. The first submits my information into this area so that I can review it. I have 8 out of 9 points. I have feedback, or should have feedback. And if I save the grade, I'm going to look to see where my feedback went. The feedback, for some reason or other, didn't save. So I can go back to Edit, and let's see what happens. And now it did. So I have 8 out of 9 points. The feedback is watch your composition. I can click OK. It'll take me back to the grade center, and I can see that my grade is recorded. And again, go back. So it's all linked within, one after the other, for grading. Now, one of the things I said was that we could set this to be complete or incomplete. Okay? So if I want to edit the column information here, and I would want a score, but they're really not worried about the points. They're going to get the rubric with the points. I would like to be able to grade it as complete or incomplete. And so I can click that, and this is a scheme that I have set up. And so if I do that, I can submit it. And now the student has a check on it. Now, when we get into the Grade Center, we're going to be talking about grading schemes. And that's what these are right here. And you can go investigate this because I'm not going to do it today. But you can change grading schemes. You can create ones that suit your letters, or you can even put text in, like good or bad or failing or whatever you want to put in. So you can create different grading schemes. So we'll talk about that in one of the seminars down the line. All right, the last component we wanted to talk about today is journals. And so I'm going to go back to my whiteboard again and look at journals. A journal is intended to be a personal space where the student writes a reflection and it only goes to the teacher. You could make the journal public, but I don't know about you, but when I think of a journal, I think of something private, where I'm willing to make maybe some comments that maybe something that's personal or something that I wouldn't say out loud in class necessarily, but I would share it with my teacher if I have a really good rapport with that teacher. So this journal is supposed to be a personal space where you communicate with your instructor, and you can grade a journal. You could mark it as complete or incomplete. The nursing profession uses it a lot for the students reflect on their clinical experience. If they went in and observed a delivery, they journal about it and say, you know, oh, it was good, or I was confused, or I was very frightened, or whatever. So they're looking to get an idea of what the student thought about that experience. So for journals, you do the same thing we've been doing here before. You're going to be creating a link in the content area, but you can just create a journal without linking it in the course tools area. So let me move over to this, and on my course tools area, I'm going to find journals and click into the journal area. And I've created a journal here called You as a Baker or a Chef. And similar way, it's a very, very similar thing on all these creations. You create a name, you create instructions, you create settings, but these are the three that you want to be careful about. Allowing the users to edit the entries, allowing them to delete comments, and permitting other course users to view the journal. You'll notice that they're defaulted to no. And that's because in a journal, I feel that I want them to write freely, and I don't want them to have second thoughts. I just want them to write it and not delete anything. And I don't want other people to see it. And I won't necessarily grade this depending on what I would be using it for, or I might use it for a reflective grade. The nursing students or the nursing school has to have some of that in their curriculum. They have to demonstrate that the students have reflected on experiences, so they have to put a column in the grade center. I don't have to. I don't include that into part of my grading. So let's take a look at this journal that I have right here. You as a baker and chef, I want to put it, now that they are 3 weeks into the course and they're starting to think of themselves as a baker or a chef, I would like to put in a journal for them to access. So I'm going to put a link to my journal as a baker chef. I'm going to click next, and because this is the journal, I don't have any instructions, but I am ready this time because I put that on a Word document so that I could go ahead and paste this in here. Now remember, when you're pasting from Word, sometimes you're going to get really kind of screwy formatting. And so you can just paste it and see how it comes out, or you can do a mashup where you paste from Word. And because of the security settings that I have, I paste it there, and I submit it, and it'll pop it into place there. So this is a mashup. It just takes out the extra coding from Word documents. If you've ever pasted anything from Word and you have Greek or Russian or some weird Cyrillic letters in front of your words, that's your problem. You've got coding that Blackboard doesn't know what to do with. So, creating the link, since I've digressed, I have the title of it, I've got the instructions, I've already got it available, I'm going to submit, and now I have a journal, and the icon is like a little book. And when the student comes in and clicks on this, it's an individual place. They get their own journal. And so they don't see anybody else's journal, and they can't see if anybody else has posted. Okay, questions? Comments? Confusion? Can we put tables in the journal? Can a student put a table in a journal? Because you wouldn't really be writing in the journal, the student would be writing in the journal. I guess you're looking as if you could set it up. I'm thinking that they could probably paste a table in there. Let me see. What do I have that it's in table form that's easy to access? Let me do something here real fast. I'm not sure it would. We can play with that one a little bit. Yeah, we've got table there, so you can create a table, that's right, and you can make the rows there. You can't paste it in, but you can create a table. But if you create a table in a journal, remember this is just the students. I do not make a wiki, well, let's see, a requirement. It depends on what its purpose is. The wiki in my, the one that I showed you with the ringtail, yes. I have used a wiki and I have made it a requirement that they respond and build something in that. So it's an assignment specifically that they have to use. The blog I use currently, they put in pictures. I can show you that one. They put in pictures. This is which class? Hold on here. This is my fall class. All right. Let's see. I don't think I have a wrong class. All right. Let me grab a class. I can show you what they did with their blog. In this one, they put in pictures, and they put in, oh, they won't have it in here yet. Oh, yes, they do. Oh, I've got students that are doing things that they're supposed to be doing. All right, that's always good to know. So Drew has put in, he started his seed project. He placed the seeds on wet paper towels and put them in a Ziploc bag. And I don't know if you'll get to see the picture, but I want to know that they're actually doing this work. And if you can see this picture, he's showing me that he's set up his germination project for the first part of my lab. I also have them include pictures of themselves doing the experiment, so I know that they're not fudging data all the time. So in this case, the blog is a requirement. Appropriate way to divide and assign separate groups for a project on a wiki. You can create a group. You can put your students into separate groups and have them work as a group on a part of a project, and then have a classroom wiki that each group has to bring in their completed component, and they could put it together on that. The other way would be to set up a wiki, and you could assign it alphabetically. The first, these 4 people are responsible for the introduction. These 4 people are responsible for the body, and these 4 people are responsible for the conclusion. So they would each have to put it in a time frame. Lots of different ways to do it, and you have to really think it out a little bit. It isn't as straightforward some ways. You think, oh, I'm just going to throw a wiki up there, I'm going to throw a blog up there. You have to think it out a little bit and decide what you really want them to do. Sometimes it will fall apart if students aren't working on the wiki. You can see who's making what contributions, and on the blog you can see who has put in some work. And so if a student is working really hard, you'll know that the other members of the group aren't contributing, because you can see what was contributed or what components or what percentage was done by the other students. So the tool itself is becoming much better and more specific, because that's something that we ask for. Group work is always tricky in any classroom. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so we have a lot of collaboration going on in our classrooms. It's a really great opportunity for us to make this a learning environment, a community. Have the students actually feel like they're contributing something to learning, that they're not just listening to you talk on with your PowerPoints and everything else. You want to give them things to do that are kind of fun, and you want to always have something that everybody likes, but they feel like they've contributed. And to make it work well, you've got to have clear directions. You want them to know exactly what the expectations are as to how much time and how much they should participate. Rubrics are nice, and I will have a session on how to create rubrics. I'll have a PDF out there, and what we're going to do is kind of make a collection of rubrics that people have used, and anyone who's willing to share a rubric, we can put it together in zip files, and you'll be able to utilize them if they're willing to let you use it. You can access it and download it into your classroom. And that'll take us a little bit of time, but we'll get there. Remember to maintain a presence, but don't overwork yourself. Let the students do some of this work. Just oversee it. Let them know you're there, but they don't depend on you for every little bit of information or work. Try to find something interesting. This video that I happen to have them watch, I have had fantastic participation. I had many non-majors say, oh, I don't want to look at this video. This is going to be boring, Earth from the satellite. And it catches them in 10 minutes, and they're writing all sorts of things about it. And again, stress how you're going to use this information and why it applies to real world that they're going to go out in. Why are you making them do this? Make sure that it has a purpose. I see JB's writing something. How to add a test student. This is really easy, guys. To get a test student in your classroom, let me move over. Test student in your classroom, go to Course Tools. First choice, add test student. And you will enroll a student that is yourself, and the password is your Power Campus ID without the zeros in the front. So instead of 000123456, it would just be T_S, and then the password would be 123456. So you just click this, and the student is enrolled. So pretty easy. And then if you want to unenroll them, you click again, and they'll be unenrolled. And it'll remove everything that they did in the classroom. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Everybody can head back and investigate using blogs, wikis, and journals in your class. And remember, it's all about learning communities. We'll see you in 2 weeks.